to the September meeting of the Village of Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. I'm Eric Von Salzen, the chair of the commission, and I ask each commissioner, starting from my far left, to state his or her name for the record.
Richard Vincent.
Thomas Schroeder.
John Taylor.
Kara Mathis.
Harry Lurch.
David Herring.
We have a quorum, and therefore we will proceed. Also present are Mr. Cassidy, Ms.
Maria Carpenter.
Alfred Cassidy.
I saw a senior person who has disappeared, so we won't have to mention his name. And our clerk, Shannon Constantinou. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest? Yes, sir.
One minor change on page 7, second to last line. It says, work is to remove a case window. I suspect that means casement.
And I think it is page 9. The name of the applicant that is sworn in is different from the name of the applicant as quoted on top. I don't know if she goes by a nickname or not. I mentioned it to staff, and I think they maybe are going to investigate. I think we ought to have the names of people who are here correct.
That would be a good idea.
Assuming that change is made appropriately, do we have a motion that the minutes as amended be approved?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. I now have a motion to enter the public hearing.
So moved.
For a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. We are now in the public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in, and the commission is required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. The proceedings are video recorded. I ask the commissioners if they have visited any of the sites on our docket today and whether they have had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we'll be considering today.
Richard Vincent, been to both sites, no ex parte communication.
Thomas Schroeder, both sites, no ex parte.
Eric Von Salzen, same.
John Taylor, same.
Kara Mathis, same.
Harry Lurch, same.
David Herring, same.
Very well. In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, staff will first present a summary of the application, the staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission standards for such an application or raises issues that require further information, the staff's comments on the application, and where appropriate, the staff's recommendations for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as the staff's detailed report, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question staff about this report and testimony. Next, the applicant or the applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in staff's testimony. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any member of the public wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at that time and identify yourself. I will swear you in and give you an opportunity to present any reasons why you believe that the application should be granted or denied. Please remember the commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have the right to exclude testimony that isn't relevant to that subject, but I'm not required to do so. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question you about your testimony. If the applicant or staff wishes to respond to your testimony, I will permit them to do so. We will now proceed to our first case. Will all staff members who may give testimony in this proceeding please stand, raise your right hand, and state your name for the record.
Maria Carpenter.
Alfred Cassidy.
Thank you. Do you each swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to all the cases on our docket today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. All right, our first case on our docket today is COA 2022-00149 involving 75 Beulah Hill Road North. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Come forward, please. If you would stand behind the stand that has the high microphone.
Yes, I'm the applicant.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name.
Dean King.
Okay, thank you. You may be seated.
Right here.
Be seated at this table. That way you'll, are you also going to testify?
I'm also, if you have questions, I'm glad to testify. I'm Greg Bryant. I am the owner, my wife and I, Marion, are the owners of the property.
Very good. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't you both be seated at the table here, and that way we'll have your voices on the record when the appropriate time comes. You proceed to present the case.
All right. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for the construction of a new single-family dwelling at 75 Beulah Hill Road North. The property is identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000-14389. The property owner is Gulf Estates NC LLC, and the applicant is Dean King of Pinnacle Development Design Build. Again, it is for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is currently vacant and is approximately 0.564 acres. The proposed new single-family dwelling should consist of 2 floors and approximately 4,690 square feet. The proposed construction will consist of a house with fiberboard siding and asphalt shingles, front porch, patio, and concrete driveway. This is major work, a major COA, because it is new construction or addition not considered to be minor work. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the PDO and general statutes for North Carolina. You can see the hatched property there is the subject property. It fronts Beulah Hill Road, and kind of on the corner with Shaw Road. Here's a site plan where the house will be located on the property. You can see the house, the driveway. Elevations for the house. We have the front, rear, left, and right sides. The building materials that'll be used, you have examples of the shutters, some tile, the front door, windows, and the asphalt shingles. Here is a rendering of the dwelling. Applicable standards, there are a lot of them, but things you should be considering are, is the structure congruous in size, scale, proportion, style, materials, and architectural character with the range of existing structures within the Pinehurst Historic District? Consider windows and doors. They also must be congruous with the primary structures in the Pinehurst Historic District. Shutters. Each shutter must be equal to the height of the window opening and 1/2 the width. Operable are recommended. Building materials, the siding, following materials and treatments are not permitted for new residential construction in the Pinehurst Historic District. Any asbestos siding or shingles, plywood siding, vinyl siding or aluminum siding, plastic, sheet metal, or similar material used as siding or panels, any treatment of material that imparts a glossy or reflective finish to the material, concrete, cinder block, or glass block, or box chimneys. You'll also consider driveways. New driveways should be located so that a minimum of alteration to historic site features such as landscaping, walkways, and retaining walls is necessary. And then landscaping and vegetation, existing large trees and other significant landscape elements should be incorporated into plans for addition and new constructions. Removal of trees 12 inches in diameter at breast height and larger must not unreasonably compromise the existing tree canopy and the historic appearance of the landscape. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The commission will need to determine if the proposed single-family dwelling is congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and whether it meets the historic district standards. And at this time, I would like to submit into the record the staff report with attachments and exhibits, this presentation, the application, and the applicant's materials and exhibits.
Without objection, the materials referred to are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have any questions for staff?
This may be better directed at the applicants, but as part of the application, do you have any sense as to, I mean, it's a reasonably heavily wooded lot at the moment, as to the percentage of the existing trees that will be taken within our jurisdiction that will be taken down? Do you have any sense as to what percentage that would be?
I don't know the percentage. They did submit a tree survey that includes what trees will be removed. Majority of them look like they're just in the building footprint.
I'll ask them.
And the applicant did also provide these examples of the siding and colors for some of the siding.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. King, would you like to address the application?
You want to talk about the trees first, or? Well, I'm not sure exactly, how this process goes. I mean, you want to just talk about the general idea behind the design, and is that how?
Well,
I'll go first. So we wanted to build this house to be consistent with the architecture of the village. For example, if you look at the arched dormers, that was a really key feature. We own the house right next door that's called Penny Copper Cottage, and you know the arched dormers on that. So I wanted it to really match up color-wise and architecturally with what we have there, the roof color and so on. So you kind of don't see a clash. They're not going to look the same, but they're going to look like their cousins. They're going to look like first cousins. And I really, that's a hard thing. Those arched dormers are pretty custom made, but I really think that's an important feature to the village. You see it all over the village architecture, and we want to preserve that. On the trees, that is a very wooded lot. You're very right. But a lot of those trees are sideways and bent, and, it's a lot that has never been taken care of. I mean, I'm talking never been taken care of. So, a lot of those trees need to come down anyhow. They're not healthy. And there are a lot of dead trees, too. But, yeah, we're trying to preserve as many as we can, especially if they're magnolias. I love them. So we're going to, no touch on magnolias, period. We'll work around them.
There's a few trees that I was reluctant to leave, but I think they'll be fine. Just because we were trying to make sure we kept as many as possible. We don't want we don't want too many large deciduous trees hanging over our house. So, but we did try to leave as many specimen and nice trees, large trees as we could. So the house seems to be nestled in there. Behind trees also, we tried to leave some in the front so that the house looked like, it's been there a while. That's our hope.
Well, there are a row of magnolias around Beulah Hill that belong to the city. I mean, so there's a really nice canopy that, is between Beulah Hill and the house anyhow, and they're all magnolias.
thank you. Other questions for the applicants? Yes, David?
Windows. The muntins on the windows, can you tell us what type of divided light muntins those are?
There will be simulated divided lights, so they look like.
Good. Excellent. Second item, on your rendering, you show shutters. You show an example of a shutter, but on your working drawings, or what might be working drawings, no shutters. I presume you're having shutters.
We are, and I had a conversation with Maria earlier about the shutters needing to be operable and needing to be in a situation where they actually cover the windows, and that was our intent on the rendering, material and size and shape, because most of them are arched like the windows, so we'll put the hardware on them that hold them and make sure that they fit, they actually are not just decorative, but they're, also utilitarian.
All good? There's nothing that I can find, unless I've missed it, about the color of the metal standing seam on your little eyebrow dormers.
It's penny copper, it's going to be penny copper. It looks like copper, but it's an aluminum, composite or something. So it doesn't tarnish, it won't turn green.
It's a Kynar finish to look like copper, much like any other metal roof, but it has a copper look.
Like a bright copper before it weathers.
If you look at our house next door, you can see exactly what they're going to look like.
Following on from David's question about the shutter, on that, on the exhibit below that one, it's S1.7. Same thing with the front door. The colored rendering that you show has a single door with transoms on the side.
Yeah, can we see that?
Yeah, because we're going with a double door, a double wood door.
I think it's S1.7. 1.6 and 1.7.
Because we did move from the previous version of that door had side lights, if I remember, and we recently changed that several weeks ago, and I'm wondering if maybe
And I
it's an
saw a
older.
picture of it in her presentation.
Yeah, the rendering and the
On sheet
presentation.
A3.
Exhibit is that?
Exhibit A 3.1. A 3.1.
Yeah, that was when it was a double door. Yeah, but at one time, remember, we had the side lights, but yeah.
Right.
So if you go back to that rendering earlier,
The exhibit just below this one.
Isn't that a double door also?
I may not have redone the rendering, I can't remember. Yeah, it might be an older one.
But you're not doing that.
No, we're doing the working drawing and the rendering of the first one that showed just the door. I mean, that's the same door, that's just a double version, that has a side light version of the same door, but we went to a single pane with the glass. Earlier, it was up there on the sample board that you showed earlier. So that's not actually the door. I'm not sure how that happened, I must have grabbed the wrong file, because I did replace that on the rendering.
That's not the latest version of the rendering.
The earlier exhibit you showed that had had the siding and the windows, the door, and I think it had the roof on it. I don't remember if we can go back to that, but that's the actual door.
Okay, I have a question then. If that rendering in that instance is not correct for the door, are there anything else on that rendering that isn't like it's going to be built?
No, the rendering is really just an idea of getting the entire feel of the house, color, texture, style, size, and, some dimension as far as like shadows, just to kind of give you a feel of what the house is going to look like.
Yeah, I understand what they
yeah.
generally are. My question is, we've identified one problem, and this is going into a record,
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure the record is clear then.
Like, from the rendering, it looks like the shutters are not in proportion to the windows where they would be when we build it.
But we will do. I spoke to Maria about that earlier last week, maybe, and we'll definitely revise the shutters to fit and operate instead of just being decorative. That's definitely the door, I'm sorry.
And it's just, we have a record that we have to keep, and that's why I'm asking the questions, is to make sure that we're clear on the record, because at some point, some building inspector is going to go out there, somebody from planning and zoning, and they're going to look at something, and if they're confused, we aren't going to like it because our record isn't right, and you aren't going to like it because now you got to go back through a whole bunch of stuff to get it cleared up. So that's why I'm trying to clear the record.
I could resubmit that rendering if that helps, but yeah, that's the working drawing, and that's.
Any member of the commission object if we allow the record to be supplemented by submission of the corrected rendering after this hearing?
Or just make a note that says the door is, I don't know, maybe.
We have them on record now.
Yeah, as long as the only thing that's on there, I don't see anything wrong with the one that's there. I would be a little hesitant in allowing something I haven't reviewed to go into the record after we've said yes or no on the record.
Okay,
So.
very well. I'm just
If,
trying to
if,
make.
that's why I asked my question, is if there was anything else on there, because we do it, and you identified the shutters may not appear to be, but we clarified that issue.
The elevation has the correct design.
Not the color
Door,
rendering.
yes. And the actual,
So-
the door, the photo of just the door alone is the actual door from where I get it from, and that's the actual door that will be delivered and purchased and installed, but yeah, we can.
Okay.
And the
As long as we
elevations is what we would
clear it
look at
up,
when
so
we
we
do
know
our
what we
inspection.
have and what we don't have. That's all. I just want to try to clear the confusion up.
The other thing is the elevation doesn't have the shutters.
It doesn't, and I did that for clarity, I mean, when I had it on there, it was so many lines, and even now that drawing looks a lot better on my screen, because when it gets emailed, the PDF just kind of gets busy and fuzzy, it just doesn't present like it does. I think we even describe in the application that there would be cedar or mahogany, cedar, wooden stain to match the door shutters.
And those shutters, as David pointed out, so you have an example of square top. It's not going to be its arch. We've settled that. Are they on the 3 windows that we see on the front of the house? Anywhere else on the house, or?
I mean, we didn't plan on doing that. That was really just for the front of the elevation. I mean, in my mind, it kind of gets busy when all of them have shutters. You know, in my mind, shutters are still, unless you're on the coast, they're really, ornate, decorative and stuff.
Decorative.
But I understand now that we need to make them operable. And, there's only 3 windows. I think that goes a long way as far as the details and the hardware and the thing that holds them in place. I think that's a nice.
So those are the only 3 windows that are going to have shutters? Okay, as long as I understand.
Maria, can you put up the tree survey? I think it's A-4. Are you able to expand that, even though we won't be able to see all of it? Or enlarge is right, yeah.
But you got to watch your microphone.
Are you able to enlarge that at all? It's a little difficult to understand those which are being taken out along the front edge. It looks like, not counting those trees that are the villages to begin with, the magnolias, that there's maybe a reasonable border or boundary there, call it privacy or what have you. But through the center of the property, it looks like virtually all the trees are going to go. Now, I agree, it's a tangled lot, overgrown, and it's hard to tell which ones might be healthy and which ones aren't, and some clearly are leaning over, what have you. But is that a fair characterization, that kind of on that diagonal through where the house will be built, virtually all the trees are going, maybe they should go, but they are going to go?
Yes, I mean, the ones with the circle and the X are the ones, obviously, they're marked to go. And if you showed the version with the house on it, I think there's a site plan with the house and shows the trees to go. And you'll see why. Even those 3 at the bottom, they're just house. And if we can keep them, when we get out there and we start clearing, you can see things better. Sometimes we always try to keep trees that we have marked to go if we can, and sometimes we have to take a tree that we marked to stay, depending on.
Right, so even some of those that you've marked to stay are going to have to go because they're in the footprint of the house.
I mean, the ones I didn't mark are the ones that we're hoping we can just save and use, like that magnolia in the back, even though it's a little bit close to the house. Most of that big arch, the big circular part is a patio, so it's not really looming over the house. So we tried to give that some thought too when I was laying out which trees to go. But if they're within 10 feet of the house and they have any size, we just, for gutters and roof and.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we understand you have to clear the lot to build the house.
Sure.
And I'm not sure there is any other way to build it, and some of the trees should probably go anyway or are dead. It's a matter of what our standards are relative to the canopy. I'm not sure you can build on this lot without reducing the canopy materially. That's a guess on my part, but I don't care what shape you put the house or how you orient it. The bulk of the trees are through the center, and they're going to have to go.
Most of the big trees are along the Beulah Hill Road. Most of what's in the center are pretty young, mangled trees. They're not very mature.
It's possible, it's hard to tell, I didn't go traipsing all over the lot. It was hard to tell from the roadside.
On this map up here that we see on the screen, the ones that are circled and have an X are the ones that are going away, correct? It looks like, or maybe I'm misinterpreting, and that's why I'm asking, that there are trees indicated within the footprint of the house that are not circled and Xed. I presume those trees all, though, will be going as well. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so not all of them that are going are circled and Xed.
They're circled on the tree survey, I believe. That was just for kind of clarity on, this site.
Yeah,
plan.
it is. If you go to the actual tree survey you put in here, those are circled. But that's what I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding. Those are going to go anyway, unless you're going to let them grow up through the middle of the house, and I doubt that works too well. Okay, I just was for clarification.
Other questions for the applicants? All right, hearing none. As I said earlier, if there's any member of the public who wishes to present any evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at this time and identify yourself. I see none. Therefore, unless any commissioner has any further questions, either for staff or the applicants, the evidentiary portion of this hearing is closed, and we will proceed to deliberations and/or to a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, David.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness and find the proposed major work at 75 Beulah Hill Road North is consistent with the historic standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based upon the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard?
Yay.
Tom?
Yay.
Eric, yay?
John, yay.
Kara, yay.
Yes.
David, yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you
have your
very much.
certificate of appropriateness.
You're welcome. I see a problem here.
Yes, yes, you do.
I see a problem and we don't have an applicant.
No such thing as a problem, only an opportunity.
Okay, well, I see an opportunity then, let's put it that way, but
Is there a requirement that the applicant attend?
yeah. Yes, a very big of a requirement.
Really?
Yes.
However, given the length of recent meetings, if this one turned out to be a bit shorter, I would not complain.
I'm not complaining about that at all, you're right, but it's just,
This is your case? It is. Okay. Pick the good one.
I know.
but if we don't have an applicant, my question is, can we move forward?
Well, let me call the case.
Okay.
Our next case on our docket is COA-2022-00158 involving 80 Carolina Vista. Is the applicant present? Applicant is not present. The applicant's representative. Well, it's Pinehurst Resorts.
Yes, sir. It's Calvin Berkeley.
Okay. Have you heard anything from the applicant suggesting why they might not be present?
No, sir. I have not heard anything.
Let me ask the commissioners. I didn't personally have any questions in mind for the applicants, although I might have some after hearing Alfred's presentation. Are we comfortable with proceeding without the applicant present?
Yes.
Yes,
In this case?
in this case, yeah.
Yes.
Just two sep, I think from a complexity standpoint, I have no need for the applicant to be here, but my question would be from a quasi-judicial legal perspective, are we within to proceed without, so I'll defer on that.
If there's any motions or anything mad, they have a right to be here, and they must be here to hear those rights. So from a legal perspective, no applicant, no way we can move forward, because there's no way if one question is asked, or if anything is done, like passing a motion, they aren't here to hear it. And they have a due process, says that they have a due process right to be involved with this, and you're basically withholding, you're taking action without meeting the due process rights to the applicant.
My own view, Tom, would be that they've waived whatever rights they have to be here by not being here. However, I am concerned that we may need them, and I don't know that we can decide whether we need them or not.
Without their input.
Without their input, exactly
it.
right.
That's
We
the
come to
point.
the same place by a different route.
Yeah, you could call it what you want, it's,
Are we able to pass a motion to defer consideration of this to the next meeting?
That's what I would recommend.
I think that we can pass, but because we're not taking action other than to defer it.
Just for curiosity, Tom, you have a question for him?
Yeah, I do have a question for them.
What would that be?
I have some questions on the color of the roofing.
Pardon?
I have some questions on the color of the roofing, which is what they're requesting, right? I believe.
Is that really germane to the approval process?
See the roof.
You can't see it.
They put it in there, I didn't.
Pardon?
They put the color in there, I did not.
I know, but you cannot see it. That's the point.
The chair will entertain a motion to defer this matter until our next regularly scheduled hearing.
So moved.
For a second.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll poll the commissioners. Richard?
On the discussion piece, do we want to see if staff can get hold of Calvin, given a few minutes, or?
Particularly given that we may be spending a little bit of time on something else, so if they could be here in 10 minutes.
But just, if it was someone that we had never dealt with before, he's always here, he's always Timaeus.
All right, why don't we take a 5-minute recess, and Alfred, can you see if you can?
Get them on the phone or something?
Yes, sir. Let me go to my office and give him a call.
Take a 10-minute recess.
Doesn't he have his number on the application?
This hearing before the Historic Preservation Commission is resumed. Mr. Cassidy, would you please, I'm calling the case COA 2022-00158 involving 80 Carolina Vista. Mr. Cassidy, would you please present the case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for the replacement of 2 sections of the roof at Carolina Hotel located at 80 Carolina Vista. The first replacement is over the main lobby, which the applicant is proposing a gray TPO roof. The second replacement is over the Cardinal Ballroom lobby, which the applicant is proposing a white TPO roof. The property is identified as Moore County, parcel ID number as 000-25808. The property owner is the Resorts of Pinehurst LLC, and the applicant is the Pinehurst Resorts. The applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to replace 2 sections of the roof at the Carolina Hotel located at 80 Carolina Vista. The first section of the roof the applicant is proposing to replace is the flat rubber roof located over the main lobby. The proposed color at the main lobby will be gray. The applicant is also proposing to replace the existing tar and gravel roof located over the Cardinal Ballroom lobby. The proposed color at the Cardinal Ballroom lobby will be white. The roof material the applicant is proposing to use at both locations is a thermoplastic polyurethane roof. The thermoplastic polyurethane roof material is a single layer product made of synthetics, which covers pretty much the flat roofs. The existing structure was built between 1899 and 1900. The parcel of the Carolina Hotel is 22.76 acres in size. Major work consists of replacing roofing with a different material or style being replaced is considered major work. The public hearing was noticed in accordance with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance and the North Carolina General Statutes at 160D-406. This is an area view of the site. According to the area view, the applicant is proposing a TPO at the main lobby and the Cardinal Ballroom, which is highlighted in red. And this is a picture of the rubber roof at the Carolina main entry lobby. And these are pictures of the gray tar roof at the Carolina Ballroom. According to the applicable standards, changes to existing commercial structures, any changes or additions to a commercial building, including alterations in roof lines, architectural details, and materials must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. Paint colors must be in the Village of Pinehurst color palette. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documents in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The applicant stated that the TPO roof material provides less maintenance and has a cleaner look and matches the balance of the flat sections around the structure. The applicant also stated that the proposed TPO roofing material is being proposed because both locations have water leakage. The commission will need to determine if this request is compatible with the architectural character of the structure and congruous with the district. At this time, staff would like to submit the following to record: staff reports with attachment exhibits, the presentation, application, applicant's materials, and exhibits. This concludes staff's report.
Without objection, the materials referred to are admitted into the record. Do commissioners have any questions for staff? Hearing none, would you come forward as the representative of the applicant? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Alvin Berkeley, B as in boy, Urkley.
Thank you. Come forward, have a seat, and tell us what you'd like to tell us in support of your application.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just 2 sections of the roofing that we're replacing that we have leaks in. The tar gravel roof, which they both have elements of tar and gravel, are failing. And the section over the Cardinal will completely match right along with everything that's right in that section with the white. We felt that the gray on the front roof section provide a little bit less glare into the windows of the rooms above. So that's why we had two different. And the one over top of the lobby is not really touching any other parts of the TPO roof structure.
Any questions for the applicant?
Are either of these surfaces visible from the ground or from anywhere other than in one of the rooms possibly?
No, none of them are visible except for in the, from the rooms.
Any other questions? Very well. As I said earlier, I'm looking at the room. I see there is nobody present. I'm therefore not going to invite any further testimony because it's obvious that unless the invisible man has got an interest in the Carolina Hotel, we don't have anybody here. Therefore, unless any commissioner has any questions, either for the applicant or for staff, I will declare the portion.
I can make a motion if you're ready.
Wait. I will declare the evidentiary portion of this hearing closed, and we will either deliberate or have a motion. Terry, you'd like to make a motion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2022-00158, and find the proposed major work at 80 Carolina Vista is consistent with historic district standards and is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Richard?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Eric, aye.
On aye.
Aye.
David, yes.
Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you very much. Wanted to give a little bit easier one this time.
Well, thank you for
Making it.
jumping over here and getting it done. We appreciate it.
Having an improvement in a building which is invisible to the public makes our job a lot easier. You should do that more often.
Like you get a choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular commission meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion passes. We are now in a regular meeting. This is a public meeting, and if there were anybody in the room present, you would be welcome to stay and observe, but only members of the commission and staff may speak. We have received minor works and staff approvals, which we have reviewed, and at this time, I'd like to take up the materials that were circulated, I think, earlier today by Alex, that originated with two members of the commission, Mr. Herring and Mr. Von Salzen. And just to explain on here, for the past couple of months, David, Alex, and I have been kicking around some ideas for what we think would be improvements in the wording of some of our standards. We obviously want to present those to you all. What we have given you for today is just 3 pages that give you a general idea of where this is all going. I'd like to ask David to kind of give a brief summary of the thought behind what we're talking about here.
David, before you go, Eric, is it, my interpretation of the email that was sent earlier today is that we are not here to actually debate specific language, but to create a sense of the commission that you're on the right track so that you can then develop specifically. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct. And since we're fortunate in having a short meeting today, everybody's probably anxious to go home, so we're not trying to keep you here and hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah, my hope is that You'll read through this and offer up any other ideas. I guess when I came on the commission, I was particularly concerned about the confusion between shoulds and musts and whether you're forbidden to enforce a should, thereby only enforcing musts. And that was not only disappointing, but difficult to actually do. I think a lot of the strength in the standards are in the shoulds. The musts are, they should be as well. So starting from really the front of the book, I started to dig in and to see what I might change. So the gist of these first 3 pages talk about the principles of what it is we're trying to do. The first one on the first page should be an absolute no-brainer, not worth discussing, since we require that in every other bit of our language and our standards and how we
We require it unless we make a specific exception to something that would normally be in the standards.
I don't think there's any way to provide permission to build something that is not congruous. We say categorically it must be
you're right.
congruous.
Okay, you're right.
So,
I agree.
Our standards say that.
yes,
And so we then say should and must mean different things, and we mistakenly just overlooked it and we said should.
Right.
When we
Right.
were
I agree.
referring to must, so.
Except, and again, not to wordsmith the words, in the paragraph at the very bottom, you then basically say that we don't have to. That things that do not meet standards, but we can deem them congruous, but they don't meet the, so I want to differentiate between meeting the standards and being deemed, they must be deemed congruous, yes.
You're right, and that's correct. It must be congruous, I agree.
That all the time. There's stuff that doesn't meet the standards, nevertheless,
It's
congruous, so must be congruous.
yeah. So that one was pretty easy. And again, it'd be great if we could zoom through these and get you guys buy-in, but I'd like to give you a little more time than one day to do that. So Eric, you want to talk about that one?
The second page?
Second page, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I make an observation on the first page?
Sure.
In general, I think clarity is often achieved by saying less and not more. And were I wordsmithing this, I would leave the 3 sentences in that paragraph at the bottom, and I would leave the third one out. At first, I thought it only applied to the first sentence and should be moved up, and then the more I thought about it, but that's just, and there's one other place where that comes up as well, in a different section.
Okay, so which specifically sentence are you looking to?
The third sentence. If I were
On
writing
which
it,
paragraph?
the bottom paragraph on page 1.
Okay,
Strict adherence?
Yeah, I should point out that I made no
Adherence.
edits to that. That is as we currently have. Okay.
No, that may be a worthwhile edit. I offer for your consideration.
But again, let's not get too much into the specifics of words. We really want to focus on concepts. Because, and so if we look at page 2, if an applicant for a certificate of appropriateness seeks HPC approval of a proposed design or improvement that does not meet the standards, the HPC requests but does not require that the applicant explain in the application why the proposed design or improvement should be approved, that is, why it is congruous with a special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. This is a new requirement. We have not had this express requirement before. As a practical matter, it probably comes up in the course of our questioning of an applicant when we see something that doesn't comply with the standards and we want to know why. When I first thought about this, being a lawyer, I thought, well, we ought to require the applicant to do this. And then I thought about some of the applicants that come before us, and I thought we may be inadvertently laying a landmine for people who just, don't follow things closely enough, and not this group that's sitting here, but a future commission could, get ultra-technical and could say, after the applicant has finished testifying, well, you didn't justify such and such, and therefore your application is denied. So I don't want that. So that's the rationale for that language. We want to encourage people to do this, and we, as commissioners, if they don't do it in their application, this is a flag for us to say this is an area in which we should be asking questions. This doesn't comply. Why did you do it this way? And then we can evaluate the response.
So this is a cleaner, the intent here was to, when we talked about the burden of proof, essentially the burden to show how your application is congruous within the historic district. You know, in the past, a year and a half ago, we started pushing staff to make sure that the applicants included photos of similar properties in the village. If you want to paint your house red, show us 5 other red houses and prove congruity, right? So that's kind of, this is beefing that up, making it clearer, bringing it into the document.
Putting it into the document so that the applicant knows from reading our standards, which we hope they do, what they're supposed to be doing.
In effect, this is trying to formalize in the application what we do in cross-examining the people that come with a request for a variance. Is that the way I see it?
But we're not requiring that they put it in the application. We're saying, we're specifically saying they don't have to put it in the application.
I know.
But we're alerting them that it's a legitimate issue and that therefore
Well, they come prepared
They should-
to
they
answer
should
that
come-
question. So this is superfluous, in my opinion.
we are not dealing with a population of applicants that are as knowledgeable as you are, Terry, or as the rest of us are, and so we want.
I
I
read
think we
it
need to
as-
look, I understand your point, but I think just off the top of my head, I may have some wordsmithing we could do. So
Perfect,
that would be.
perfect. Let's not do that now, but-
Right.
but
I
just-
understand your point,
right,
and I
right.
think that's the intent of this discussion. Is
Right,
that
and
correct?
I think, Terry, it's worthwhile informing people who may not read even the form they're filling out as closely. This group, certainly, if someone comes before us, we are going to ask them about it. So we might as well
They
inform
don't
them.
read the other stuff, why would they read this?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got questions too, but I think the idea,
That's
I
lead
understand the
horse to
concept,
water.
and we probably need to spend a little more time on it, would be my thought.
I'm sure that when you were a magistrate, many people came before you who had never read the statutes and regulations. that
Oh,
they
well,
were
so
being-
99.9% of them. I mean, that's why you have attorneys and most of that stuff.
Well, it's on the order, John, what you said before, sometimes less is better.
Yes.
I agree.
I have a suggestion in that line that I will pass along to David or Eric.
Did you want to say anything about
Yeah,
the
there's
history?
just, the last page really sets the tone of the idea that if we want our applicants to do something, we should say so. You must do this, particularly with regard to existing houses, which is what this is a precursor to. You must do this if you can, if it's possible. So it's must, if possible, that dual phrase. You'll see me doing more of that in the subsequent sections.
Must if possible.
Must if possible, which essentially gets it into the must category, but still leaves them an out if they think it's not possible. Particularly-
That option is always there to the standard, as we pointed out on the first page, is that, yeah, we have to meet the standards unless we think it's congruous without the standards.
Unless we
Being
use the
met.
word should.
And David, first of all, philosophically, I am very much on board with the direction of all of this. Would the red section toward the bottom under replace deteriorated component, people have a lot of wood windows in the older buildings. We will approve a vinyl window. There are wood windows available. How do you, as you think about wordsmithing, think about the fact that sometimes there are permitted replacements that are not the original? I don't have a good answer for that off the top of my head, but
I think if you have a historic house that's an important house in Pinehurst that was built in 1920 with wood windows,
Two of those.
They face, good point, and they face the road, those windows. And it's time for some repair work to be done on the house, particularly the windows. What is it we want them to do? Do we want them to rip that window out and put in a vinyl window? Or do we want them to fix the wood window or replace the wood window with as close an approximation of that wood window as we can?
I agree, and I know what we want them to do, but if they come before us with a vinyl replacement, are we going to deny the COA on that basis? That would be my question, given that vinyl windows are permitted.
I think that's really the gist of what we have to wrestle with in
I think,
moving from musts to
I
should.
think.
What is it we
I mean, I
want?
just off the top of my head, if they look the same, then the material is not relevant particularly. Just because it's wood, I mean, if I had a gold-plated window in the front of it, and I could make it look gold without plating it, I don't think that's wrong. I mean, so, and we have the same problem with like hardy board, is the same story, or a product similar to hardy board. We got out of using that term, because when I first got here, that's all they used was hardy board. And then other products come along. If it looks like the wood it's replacing, then I think it would be even more appropriate to replace it with that kind of material because it'll last longer and it'll look better for a longer period of time. As long as it looks like the original material.
I guess I would say we are in our title is the word preservation. And if we read the documents that are referenced about how these standards were built, it talks about preserving over replacing. So
And if they can preserve it, I have no issue with it. But if you're going to replace it, then that's a different issue.
What we're getting to now,
Is into where we don't want to go right at the moment.
no, it's very important. It's just that it's for a further
Yeah, that's what I'm
stage
saying.
development of the
Yeah.
document.
Okay, I understand what you're saying in here. So yes, I'm
My
clear with
comment
what you're
was
saying.
was a request to reflect on it, not a stipulation that I know the right answer.
Right.
Yeah. So
What I
that's,
think I'm hearing is that
They're good things to talk about.
willing to discuss the
Absolutely.
concepts that we're dealing with here.
Absolutely.
That's agreeable to the group. Alex and David and I will work up more of the same, following the philosophical approach that is reflected here, and bring it for your attention.
And then we can hash it out then.
I'm glad you pointed this out, because the last time we went through this, you see something different every time. And just historic fabric just feels weird. I mean, I would push for the replacement of fabric with just call it exterior material. Fabric is so big. I know it's almost like the skin of something, right? But if I was up here, I'd say, well, is the window really fabric? I'd be thinking more in lines of siding and trim and things like that. So I think we have more breadth if we just say historic materials on the exterior of the building. Just materials, like that's
Fabric
simplifying it.
is too architectural a term for a lay reader.
I'm all for that. Make it understandable
Yeah,
that
but
people have to use it.
Okay, well, yeah.
Not tonight.
Not,
but,
not,
just
yeah, I'm
as-
not arguing tonight. Yeah, I think that's something else I'll look at, but there's more to that too that I want to get into, but not tonight.
I guess my hope is, if this works the way I hope it works, it gives us a way to more clearly say to the people who have to use this document what it is we're hoping they will do,
And I'm all for that. Absolutely.
as opposed to saying, and my guess is there are a lot of applicants who've been through the stand behind the mic routine many times. They know that we don't enforce the shoulds in general, and they ignore them.
That was a decision made way back when they rewrote this thing.
Time to fix it.
That is a huge project.
That's what we're starting.
Has anyone else on the commission currently actually prepared an application for either a minor or a major COA?
I have not.
So as I understand it here, that these requirements, these must only apply to historic structures.
Correct.
Only
They apply
historic
to all-
structures.
No.
They apply to any
district.
structure
wait a
that's
minute.
within
Any
the-
structure in the district.
No, but Tara's raising a point that I found also, and this is wordsmithing, but If I have a house built in 1963 that's
Yeah,
in the
I-
historic
I
district.
have the same thing, like the one farthest out on Linden on the left, which just is barely in, that was the 1970s. or-
Because everything in the historic district isn't historic.
I agree.
But that's irrelevant to our task. We don't have.
Not irrelevant how you write this, though.
That's correct.
No, it certainly is not irrelevant, you're right.
Highly relevant.
But we'll get into the details, so we're going to get into, we're all headed to details for this.
Philosophical or possibly legal question that we may want to thrash out.
I think we need to hash out more of it.
Impression is that the statute does not give us the power to distinguish between historic and non-historic buildings within the historic district unless we declare a building a landmark, and that, which we have the power to do.
Well,
Statute.
it also, the statute allows us to recommend to the village that individual houses be removed from the historic district, even if they're inside of it. So that, I think, is the way the statute utilises. It says it's part of our responsibility, actually, to recommend if we think it's a non-historic building, that it be taken out of the historic district.
If we did that, then in theory, they could do anything and not come before us.
No, because we have to make the recommendation.
Do we even have a
Right,
definition
we would.
for
Oh, I
what
mean,
makes a house
if the owner of the house,
historic?
if we take them out as
Yeah,
non-historic.
if we take the house out and say, this house is no longer,
But
Well,
that's
they still
has
have to
do
meet
with
the
the federal
PDO.
guideline. Has nothing to do with our local
So they
ordinance.
can't just do anything. I agree.
We don't have a definition of what constitutes a
Well, that's-
historic house.
But that's why when it says historic fabric, less is more. If you just say fabric, right, or material, then, I mean, my house is 1950, it's in the historic district, I wouldn't call it a historic home. And there's plenty of 1940 homes that have vinyl siding on them. We don't want to say that's a historic home and they need to keep the same material, right?
That's right.
I think less is more, simplify it, it gives us more breadth.
And those are the kind of things I think this needs, but I'm all in for doing this kind of work. I
Yes,
think that's a
agreed.
phenomenal
Theme.
thing.
to Terry's point, we can't make them read this, but we can make it as clear as we possibly can if they choose to.
Trust me, when we rewrote this thing, there was tons of time spent on this and discussing that very same subject that we're talking about.
Well, we,
right
we have the luxury of being a smaller group.
now. Well, yeah, we're 7 instead of 30.
A little easier to make forward progress.
I agree. With
As a-
that, no effect.
Eric, as a procedural matter, if I have specific comments on this, can I email them to the two of you and/or Alex, or does this contact?
Alex, and you can include everybody on the commission if you want to. I mean,
The only thing I would ask a staff is that when they do make changes, that they please use the red line so we know specifically what was taken out as well as what's put in new. That was one of the biggest mistakes that the previous section did. They took stuff out at one meeting saying they were going to put it back in and didn't redline it out. And then when it come time for the final project, everybody forgot it had been taken out. And that's why we see some of the things we've already identified as should have been in there in the first place. So as long as we stick with the redlining process.
Is there, this might be a dumb question because
Well, ain't
I
no
don't know
such
what
thing.
you guys use, but does this live like in a dynamic document somewhere where we could just,
Not on a Google,
okay.
not a Google Doc.
Figured.
I saw what you
I
were
know.
going with that.
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't
Could
put
it? Could we?
If it
could
were
we-
secure, yeah, I wouldn't leave it open to the public for the press to grab a hold of something and misinterpret.
And Kara, I think that may be a good idea down the road. I think at the moment, we ought to give the authors the chance
Right,
to come
right.
up with the first draft.
I also want to say, I never,
As long as it's secure.
I never imagined I'd be doing this alone, so I'm hoping you guys will.
Oh, well, it's, yeah. Well, I,
trying to get a process started. I'm very pleased with the reaction of the other members of the commission. I think, we have the potential here to improve the process, which will benefit us as commissioners if it works properly, and it will certainly benefit the members of the public who.
it will help us and it will help the public. Clarification is always good. Unfortunately, you can't clarify everything perfectly, so you make your best shot.
And my purpose in asking earlier if anyone had actually, once you think you've read through the
Yeah.
applicable piece, and then you go to the actual software to make the application, it is an entire, you're not in Kansas anymore.
One's in Kansas and the other's in California.
We can't do anything about that, but we can be cognizant of the fact that when people go from reading this to actually making an application, there's almost a different language.
Sure, I agree. And that's a problem, but not one that we can particularly address.
If there's no other business to come before the HPC, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay.
Cover minor works, or we?
Oh, we can?
We did.
I think we did.
Eric mentioned it.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, so it's in the record. I believe it's in the record that we discussed minor work, right?
Well, we didn't, we said it was there.
Okay, that's what we.
Well, that's all really we can do is say, yeah, we've looked at it, thank you very much.
We noted its existence.
Incorporation by reference, there you go.
Yeah, we can't change it.
5:09 PM.
New record.
Meeting is adjourned. Until